A state of emergency has been declared.
The blaze has forced the closure of the Princes Highway.
Dozens of homes have been turned to rubble.
Hundreds of people have lost their homes.
The Black Summer bushfires were the closest career firefighter Brett Farmer ever came to dying on the job.
It was just a couple of weeks before Christmas, and we were sent down to the south coast, down between Ulladulla and Bateman's Bay. After about 15-20 minutes, it was like all hell had broken loose. We very quickly became overwhelmed by the amount of smoke and fire.
He survived, and he and his colleagues saved houses. Just months later, the 45-year-old was diagnosed with testicular cancer and needed surgery. Decades as a volunteer and then a paid firefighter are likely to blame.
I wasn't thinking about exposure to smoke. I wasn't thinking about carcinogens. I wasn't thinking about what the long-term effects would be.
Testicular cancer is one of 12 cancers that occur in higher rates amongst paid firefighters. They also include brain, breast, bowel, bladder, kidney, esophageal, urethra and blood and bone cancers. Professor Malcolm Sim is leading the largest ever study of volunteer firefighter health and says volunteers face similar risks of the same cancers from smoke.
It's not just one or two contaminants, it's a whole cocktail of different things which can cause cancer in different parts of the body. There are still certainly a lot of contaminants that are given off just from wood. Polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which are known to increase the risk of lung cancer and bladder cancer in particular.
He says during the Black Summer fires, the smoke was impossible to avoid.
What's important is not just the time that people are fighting the fires, but are also after that when the smoke haze is still lingering and can still be breathed in. So that was a really big step up in terms of risk for firefighters during that season, and I think it's a forerunner of what's likely to come.
Despite clear concerns, volunteer firefighters wear mostly paper P2 masks, except in Queensland and WA. But in the rest of Australia, their paid colleagues can typically opt for higher grades of masks.
The problem is with P2 masks is that they're also flimsy. They can get wet, they can get bumped, they start to fall off. Once you start sweating, it becomes uncomfortable. Anecdotally, a lot of the time, the P2 masks were spent hanging around people's necks as opposed to on their face. It doesn't protect you against the toxic vapours that are present in bushfire smoke.
Firefighters' uniforms can also be a hazard. After a fire, they can emit smoke for days. It's called off-gassing. The ABC's heard of examples across the country where volunteers were only given one set of gear each, meaning they have no choice but to breathe in the dangerous fumes. Paid fireys are also more likely to have the gear professionally laundered. That's not the case with volunteers.
It's bringing your gear home from the fire ground, covered in contaminants and carcinogens, and essentially putting it in your domestic washing machine.
The ABC was told only some fire stations have washing machines and some aren't hooked up. In New South Wales, the Rural Fire Service warned against crews buying their own higher grade masks in 2020. But it now says it's partnered with the University of Wollongong to research better options.
We work hard to make sure our volunteers right across the state have the highest quality of equipment available to them. Do we still need to do more work in regard to what is the right respiratory protection solution? Is there more that we can look at in terms of flexible options around the laundering of the PPE? Yes, there is.
In Victoria and the ACT, the services say they're also researching the problem, and the CFA has funding to upgrade masks based on the findings.
What is a bushfire?
Advocates say it's time for cultural change in a field where a dirty uniform was once a badge of honour.
I want to be part of not only making myself healthier, but making the organisation and firefighters generally healthier, so that we all get to see our kids grow up.
Protecting the lives of those who will protect us this coming fire season. Sophie Scott, ABC News.